Your grandpa was what now? The coach sneered as the room laughed, until the door creaked open and the whispers died in an instant. A shadow stepped into the dojo, calm, composed, and unmistakable. Chuck Norris had arrived. Welcome to Chuck Norris Heroics. Let's uncover what really happened. The dojo buzzed with the usual energy of eager students practicing their kicks and punches. The sharp sounds of feet striking mats echoed off the walls, mixed with the low murmur of the coach's instructions. In the midst of this familiar rhythm, the entrance creaked open, drawing several heads. A girl stepped inside, her eyes scanning the room nervously. She was new, her movements hesitant but determined, dressed in a plain white GI that looked slightly too big for her. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and though she tried to steady her breathing, the nerves showed in the faint tremble of her hands. The coach, a burly man with a sharp voice and a quick temper, paused mid-instruction. His gaze settled on the newcomer, narrowing with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The other students whispered quietly among themselves, some casting glances her way, others sizing her up with subtle nods or smirks. The girl took a deep breath, stepped onto the mat, and bowed respectfully toward the coach. She introduced herself softly. "I'm Maya. I'd like to join the dojo." The coach crossed his arms, his lips curling into a smirk. "You sure you're ready for this? Karate isn't a game." His voice carried the weight of challenge, setting the tone for what was to come. Maya nodded without hesitation, the determination in her eyes shining through despite her small frame. She didn't say much else, but her stance spoke volumes, ready to prove herself. The warm-up began, and Maya followed the motions, trying to keep up with the more experienced students. Her punches lacked the speed and force of the others, but she matched their focus, refusing to let exhaustion slow her down. As the session progressed, the coach's critical gaze lingered on her, occasionally barking corrections that stung but pushed her harder. By the end of practice, the whispers had grown louder, some students doubting she'd last a week, others intrigued by the quiet fire burning beneath her nerves. As Maya bowed and prepared to leave, a few of the older students offered small nods of encouragement. Despite the challenges ahead, she had made it through her first day, and she was ready to fight for her place on the mat. During a brief break between training drills, the students gathered near the water cooler, wiping sweat from their brows and catching their breath. Maya stood quietly at the edge, clutching her water bottle, listening to the conversations buzzing around her. The topic shifted to famous martial artists and the legacy of past champions. Some students boasted about their own family's achievements, trying to impress one another. Suddenly, Maya's voice cut through the chatter, clear and steady despite her usual quiet demeanor. "My grandpa was a world karate champion," she said. Heads turned, surprised by the bold claim from the new girl. A few students raised their eyebrows, exchanging glances that mixed curiosity with skepticism. The coach, overhearing from across the room, smirked and walked over, folding his arms. "Is that so?" he said, his tone dripping with disbelief. "What's his name, then? Never heard of him." The room grew silent, the air thick with tension as everyone waited for Maya's response. "He trained in Japan," Maya replied without hesitation. "His name was Hiroshi Takeda. He won several international titles back in the day. I've seen the trophies at home and old videos of his fights. He was the best." Her eyes shone with pride, and despite the nervous flutter in her chest, she stood her ground. The coach laughed, loud and mocking. "Sounds like a fairy tale to me. We've got plenty of tough kids here, but I've never seen any world champion's granddaughter hold her own on this mat." A few students chuckled along with him, some whispering doubts, and others openly questioning her story. Maya's fists clenched briefly at her sides, but she didn't back down. "I'm not here to talk," she said firmly. "I want to learn and show what I'm made of." The coach waved a dismissive hand. "We'll see about that. Talk is cheap." As practice resumed, Maya felt the weight of eyes on her, some doubting, some waiting for her to fail. But deep inside, the memory of her grandfather's discipline and honor gave her strength. This was just the beginning of her fight to prove that her claim wasn't just words. It was her legacy. The next day, the dojo was alive with the usual intensity as students moved through their katas and sparring drills. Maya stood near the center, sweat beading on her forehead, muscles already aching from the previous day's training. She tried to keep up, but the coach's sharp eyes rarely missed a mistake. Every misstep was met with a harsh word. Every hesitation a pointed glare. During a break, the coach gathered the students for a demonstration. His voice was loud and commanding, echoing through the room. Karate isn't about stories or family legends, he sneered, pacing before them. It's about skill, discipline, and strength. None of that matters if you can't back it up. He stopped in front of Maya, folding his arms with a smirk. So, you say your grandpa was a world champion? Huh? What exactly does that mean here? Are you supposed to be some kind of prodigy just because of his name? His tone was dripping with sarcasm, designed to cut down anyone who dared to believe otherwise. Maya swallowed hard but met his gaze steadily. The coach's smirk deepened, and he raised an eyebrow. Let me be clear. This dojo isn't a place for fairy tales or excuses. If you want to be taken seriously, you have to earn it. And you're not going to do that by talking about your grandpa. Around the room, some students shifted uncomfortably. A few exchanged looks, some nodding in agreement with the coach, others seeming to sympathize quietly with Maya. The coach's voice grew sharper as he continued. I've seen plenty of wannabes come through these doors, claiming great things and falling flat the moment the real work starts. He leaned in closer, his eyes narrowing. You're here to train, to fight, to prove yourself, not to hide behind someone else's reputation. The room was silent except for the faint hum of the ventilation system. Maya's heart pounded, but she didn't speak. Instead, she clenched her fists at her sides, the sting of his words igniting a fire inside her. The coach straightened, stepping back. Now, I'll get back to training. Actions speak louder than words. With that, he turned sharply, leaving Maya to face the weight of his sneering dismissal, and the determination growing stronger with every breath she took. The air in the dojo felt heavier that afternoon. As Maya moved through her drills, she could feel the weight of eyes watching her from every corner. Whispers floated just out of earshot, snatches of conversation that stopped abruptly whenever she glanced their way. The students clustered in small groups, their quiet laughter occasionally breaking through the low hum of the training session. She caught fragments. Grandpa world champion, yeah right, and thinks she can actually fight? That stung sharper than any punch. Even some of the newer students joined in, emboldened by the coach's open skepticism. It wasn't outright cruelty, but the subtle mockery gnawed at her confidence. During a sparring match, her partner aimed a light jab, but the look in his eyes betrayed his doubt. Come on, show us what the champion's granddaughter can do, he whispered, smirking as he stepped back. Maya responded with a steady block, pushing herself harder than before, but the undercurrent of disbelief in the room made every movement feel heavier. At one point, a group of boys huddled near the edge of the mat, exchanging exaggerated impressions of her grandfather's supposed feats, mimicking karate moves with exaggerated flair. A few others snickered, stealing glances her way to gauge her reaction. Maya kept her face neutral, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her falter. The coach's laughter rang out at one of the boys' jokes, the sound cutting through the room like a knife. It was a reminder that she was still the outsider, the one they all doubted. Yet beneath the whispers and snickers, a small but growing sense of resolve took root in Maya's chest. She told herself that this was part of the fight, not just against opponents in the ring, but against the judgments and disbelief of those around her. With every whispered doubt, she grew more determined to silence them through her actions, not words. The dojo wasn't just a place to train, it was a proving ground, and Maya was ready to prove herself. Maya sat alone on the bench after practice, her hands wrapped carefully around a warm cup of tea she had brought from home. The sounds of the dojo, grunts, thuds, and the coach's sharp commands had faded into the background, replaced by a quiet hum in her mind. The doubts and whispers from earlier still echoed, but but instead of weighing her down, they fueled a steady fire inside her. She thought about her grandfather, the stories her parents had told her when she was little. The way his eyes would gleam with pride as he described the discipline, the respect, and the countless hours of training it took to become a world champion. It wasn't just about winning fights. It was about honor, humility, and resilience. Maya felt a deep connection to that legacy, even if no one at the dojo seemed to believe it. Her fingers tightened slightly around the cup. She didn't need to shout or boast. She knew her journey wouldn't be easy, and the sneers and challenges wouldn't stop. But she had come this far because she believed in herself and the values her grandfather had passed down. Quiet determination wasn't flashy or loud, but it was powerful. As the other students gathered their things and left, some casting fleeting glances her way, Maya stayed seated. She closed her eyes briefly, picturing herself on the mat, strong, focused, unshaken by doubt or distraction. The path ahead was long, and the weight of expectation heavy, but she was ready to carry it. When she finally stood, her posture was straight and steady. She gathered her belongings with deliberate calm and walked toward the exit. Outside, the evening air was cool and refreshing, a sharp contrast to the heated tension inside the dojo. Maya inhaled deeply, letting the cool breeze clear her mind and renew her spirit. She didn't need anyone's approval to keep moving forward. Her strength would come from within, from the legacy she carried and the battles she was willing to face. Tomorrow, and every day after, she would return to the mat with that same quiet determination, ready to prove, not with words, but with every punch, every kick, every step. The following week brought a series of sparring sessions that tested Maya in ways she hadn't yet experienced. Each match was a challenge, not just physically but mentally. Her opponents ranged from impatient beginners to seasoned students who took every opportunity to remind her she didn't belong. Their punches and kicks were precise, but often delivered with a calculated edge, an unspoken message meant to intimidate or belittle. During one match, her partner, a tall boy with a cocky grin, leaned in close as they circled. "Heard your grandpa's name, but I don't see the champion in you," he murmured just loud enough for her to hear. Maya blocked his jab and countered with a quick strike, her movements fluid despite the sting of his words. The boy's eyes flickered with surprise, but his smirk only grew wider. Another student, standing by the sidelines, tossed comments that floated across the room like daggers. "Don't trip over your own feet, princess," he sneered during her turn in the ring. Some students snickered, but Maya's focus didn't waver. She had learned early on that ignoring the noise was as important as perfecting her technique. The coach watched from his usual spot with a critical eye, occasionally calling out corrections or barking orders. His words were sharp, but not always unfair, pushing Maya to improve her stance, speed, and accuracy. Yet, the way he sometimes glanced at her after a mistake held a hint of disbelief, as if waiting for her to fail. Despite the subtle taunts, Maya's determination only strengthened. Each match was a lesson, not just in karate, but in resilience. She learned to anticipate not only physical moves, but the mental games her opponents played. With every sparring session, her confidence grew, and so did her respect among a few students who quietly admired her grit. By the end of the week, Maya knew the path ahead was far from easy. The whispers, the sneers, and the challenges would continue. But so would her fighting spirit, steady, quiet, and unyielding. One evening, as the dojo emptied and the last echoes of training faded, Maya lingered behind, quietly practicing her forms alone. The soft thud of her movements was the only sound in the dimly lit room. She repeated each motion carefully, focusing on every breath and muscle, determined to improve beyond what anyone expected. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a calm presence stepped inside. Maya looked up to see an older man with a steady gaze and a quiet strength in his posture. He moved with ease and confidence, his steps measured but purposeful. There was something familiar about him, an unspoken authority that made the room feel instantly different. I saw your training from outside, he said gently, his voice steady but kind. You have potential, but you're holding back. Maya blinked, surprised by the unexpected visitor. Who are you? She asked, cautiously curious. He smiled softly. Someone who once walked a similar path. I've been where you are, doubted, underestimated, and challenged. I'm here to help you find your strength. The coach entered the room at that moment, pausing as he noticed the newcomer. The older man nodded respectfully, but did not seek attention. Instead, he turned back to Maya. Technique alone won't win fights. You need focus, resilience, and heart. Those come from within, and sometimes from guidance. Maya felt a flicker of hope. This stranger wasn't like the others. No sneers, no disbelief, just calm support. Over the next several weeks, he stayed, offering quiet lessons, refining her form, and pushing her limits gently but firmly. His presence was steady, a beacon amid the skepticism and noise. The students began to notice subtle changes in Maya, not just in her moves, but in her confidence and calm. The whispers softened, replaced by cautious respect. The mentor's guidance gave her more than skill. It gave her belief in herself. For the first time since joining the dojo, Maya felt she wasn't alone. With this unexpected mentor by her side, the path ahead seemed less daunting, and her quiet determination burned brighter than ever. Late one quiet evening, Maya sat on the porch of her small home, the fading sun casting warm hues across the sky. She held an old, worn photo album in her lap, its pages filled with yellowed pictures and fading memories. Her fingers traced the image of a young man in a traditional GI, poised with perfect form and fierce determination. It was her grandfather, Hiroshi Takeda, the man whose legacy both inspired and challenged her. She remembered the stories her parents told, tales of his rise from a small village dojo to international championships, the sacrifices he made, and the respect he earned through discipline and humility. Grandpa wasn't just a fighter. He was a teacher, a man who carried honor in every move he made. His victories were never about showmanship, but about mastering oneself and protecting what mattered. Maya's eyes glistened as she turned the pages, coming across a letter handwritten in elegant Japanese calligraphy. It spoke of perseverance, patience, and the quiet power of self-belief. Her grandfather's words felt like a guide, reaching through time to steady her heart when doubt crept in. She thought about how different the dojo felt compared to the stories she'd heard, how the coach doubted her, how whispers followed her every move. But these memories reminded her that strength wasn't loud or boastful. It was steady, earned through countless hours of practice and unyielding resolve. A soft breeze ruffled the pages, and Maya closed the album gently. She sat upright, the warmth of the setting sun matching the resolve growing inside her. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was carrying forward a legacy built on respect, honor, and relentless dedication. With a quiet smile, she whispered a promise to her grandfather's memory, to train harder, to rise above the doubt, and to become the fighter he believed she could be. The path ahead was still long, but Maya knew now that the strength of her grandfather's legacy was with her every step of the way. As the dojo emptied and the evenings settled into quiet, Maya stayed behind. The fluorescent lights hummed softly overhead, casting long shadows across the empty mats. She tied her hair tighter, took a deep breath, and stepped onto the training floor alone. This was her moment. No eyes watching, no whispers to drown out. Just her and the discipline she craved. She began slowly, repeating the basic stances and movements she had been drilled on for weeks. Each step, each punch, carried more intention than before. Her muscles ached from the day's practice, but fatigue was a distant thought. She focused on precision, imagining her grandfather's steady gaze guiding her through each form. The air in the room was still except for the soft rustle of her GI as she moved. She lost herself in the rhythm. The inhale, the pivot, the strike, each motion building strength and confidence. The quiet gave space for reflection. She noticed where her balance faltered, where her punches lacked speed, where her kicks needed more control. Minutes stretched into an hour. Sweat slicked her brow and soaked her sleeves, but Maya pushed through, determined to improve beyond what anyone expected. She practiced transitions between moves, working to make her flow seamless and natural. With every repetition, she felt a little closer to the fighter she wanted to become. Occasionally, her mind wandered to the coach's sneers and the doubtful glances from the other students. But here, in this solitude, none of that mattered. This was where she reclaimed her focus and rebuilt her resolve. She wasn't training to impress anyone. She was training to prove to herself that she belonged. When she finally slowed to a stop, chest rising and falling with steady breaths, Maya felt a quiet satisfaction settle in. She wiped the sweat from her face, smiled softly, and bowed to the empty dojo. This solo session wasn't just practice, it was a declaration. She was ready to fight, not just against others, but against every doubt that stood in her way. The next morning, the dojo buzzed with the usual energy, students stretching and warming up under the watchful eye of the coach. Maya entered, her steps steady but her heart pounding. The whispers had quieted somewhat, but the weight of expectation lingered. She knew today was different. The tension in the air was thick, charged with anticipation. The coach called everyone to gather in a circle. His gaze locked onto Maya as he stepped forward, voice low but cutting through the room like a blade. You've been here long enough to know this isn't a place for stories or excuses. You talk about your grandfather, but words don't win fights. He paced slowly, eyes narrowing. So here's what I'm going to do. You're either going to prove you belong in this dojo, right here, right now, or you're going to pack up and leave. No more second chances. A hush fell over the students, some exchanging uneasy glances while others watched Maya intently. The challenge was clear and uncompromising. Maya felt the coach's gaze like a spotlight, but instead of fear, determination flooded her veins. She squared her shoulders, meeting his eyes without flinching. I'm ready, she said quietly but firmly. The coach nodded once, signaling one of the senior students to step forward. You'll spar with Takashi here. He's fast and unforgiving. Show me what you've learned. The match began immediately. Takashi advanced aggressively, testing Maya's defenses with sharp jabs and quick footwork. Maya blocked and countered, focusing on precision over power, remembering every lesson from her mentor. Each movement was deliberate, her breathing steady despite the pounding adrenaline. The coach watched silently, his expression unreadable as the two sparred. The room was tense, students holding their breath. Maya's body ached, but she pushed on, refusing to yield. When the match ended, the coach stepped forward, eyes still locked on her. After a long pause, he finally spoke. You've got heart, but heart alone isn't enough. Keep training. Maya exhaled deeply, relief and pride mixing within her. She hadn't just passed a test. She'd earned a place to fight for, and the journey was only beginning. The dojo was silent except for the soft echo of Maya's breathing and the faint sound of her feet sliding across the mat. The overhead lights cast a dim glow, shadows stretching long in the empty room. Outside, the world had fallen quiet, but inside, Maya pushed herself harder than ever. She had stayed late, determined to make every moment count. The memory of the coach's challenge lingered in her mind, his words both a warning and a motivation. She moved through her forms deliberately, each stance sharper, each strike more precise than before. Her muscles ached, but she welcomed the burn. It was proof she was growing stronger. Between repetitions, Maya paused to wipe the sweat from her brow, eyes scanning the empty room as if expecting someone to appear. The solitude gave her a chance to reflect on how far she had come and how far she still had to go. She thought of her grandfather's legacy, the quiet strength he had carried, and she vowed to embody that same resilience. She practiced her sparring footwork, imagining an opponent's movements, adjusting her balance, and refining her timing. Her kicks cut through the air with growing confidence, her fists snapping forward with steady force. There was no distraction here, no doubts, no sneers, just focus. Hours slipped by unnoticed. The night deepened, and the world outside seemed to hold its breath along with her. Maya's mind quieted, her body moving almost instinctively, muscles remembering patterns carved through repetition. She felt the connection between mind and body sharpen, a harmony that had seemed elusive before. Finally, she slowed to a stop, chest rising and falling in even breaths. The fatigue was heavy, but so was the satisfaction of knowing she had given her all. She bowed to the empty dojo, a silent promise to keep pushing, to keep fighting, and to never let the shadows of doubt dim her spirit. As she gathered her things and stepped out into the cool night air, Maya felt something shift inside her, a quiet confidence that would carry her through whatever challenges lay ahead. One rainy afternoon, Maya sat in the corner of her grandfather's study, the soft patter of droplets against the window creating a calm backdrop. On the desk before her lay a dusty box, carefully wrapped in faded paper. She gently lifted the lid and found a stack of old VHS tapes and a worn photo album, remnants of a past filled with triumph and dedication. With trembling hands, she plugged the old VHS player into the television, dusting off the tape before inserting it. The screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage of her grandfather in his prime, moving with fluid precision, executing flawless kicks and punches, and facing off against opponents in arenas packed with roaring crowds. The commentator's voice crackled through the speakers, describing each move with admiration and respect. Maya's eyes widened as she watched, absorbing every detail. Her grandfather's discipline, his calm under pressure, and the respect he commanded were undeniable. It was more than skill. It was a presence that commanded attention and inspired awe. Between tapes, she leafed through the photo album, her fingers tracing images of trophies, medals, and handwritten notes from friends and fellow champions. There were letters of congratulations from international masters, newspaper clippings praising his dedication, and even a personal journal filled with reflections on his journey. These forgotten pieces of glory felt like a bridge between past and present, a reminder that greatness was not born overnight, but forged through years of sacrifice and perseverance. Maya felt a renewed sense of purpose swell within her. The doubts from the dojo seemed distant here, replaced by the tangible proof of what her grandfather had achieved. His legacy was real, and now it was her turn to carry it forward. She carefully packed the tapes away, a quiet promise forming in her heart. The path ahead would be long and difficult, but with every step, she would honor the forgotten glory and the enduring spirit of the man who had paved the way before her. The next morning, the dojo was alive with the usual clatter of training, students moving through their drills with sharp focus. Maya stood near the edge of the mat, her heart steady but her mind alert. The air felt different today, charged with a tension that hadn't been there before. Word had spread about her late-night practice and the old videos she'd found. Whispers circled like currents beneath the surface. The coach's eyes scanned the room before locking on Maya. Without hesitation, he strode toward her, his expression unreadable. "So, you think you've earned some respect now?" His voice was low but carried an edge sharp enough to cut through the noise. Maya met his gaze without flinching. "I'm here to learn and improve. That's all." Her voice was calm, steady, but filled with quiet determination. The coach's smirk tightened. "Enough with the talk. Prove it." He signaled for a sparring match, choosing one of the dojo's top fighters to face her. The other students formed a loose circle, eyes fixed on the pair as they stepped onto the mat. The match began swiftly. Maya moved with newfound confidence, her strikes sharper, her footwork lighter. She blocked and countered with precision, recalling every lesson from her mentor and every moment spent in solitude perfecting her technique. The coach watched closely, nodding occasionally, though his expression remained stern. He barked instructions, pushing Maya harder, demanding more. At one point, the coach called a halt. He approached Maya, inspecting her stance and breathing. "You've improved," he admitted grudgingly, "but you're still not where you need to be." Maya absorbed the critique without protest. The challenge wasn't over, and she welcomed it. This was the proving ground she had sought, and every test only fueled her resolve. As the session ended, the coach gave a brief nod toward the other students, signaling an unspoken message. Maya was no longer just the girl with a story. She was a fighter earning her place, one determined step at a time. One afternoon, after a particularly intense training session, the coach called Maya aside. His expression was serious but not unkind. "There's a local tournament coming up next month," he said, folding his arms. "It's a chance to test your skills in a real fight, not just in the dojo." Maya's heart quickened at the thought. She had heard about the tournaments, events where fighters from all over gathered to compete, where reputations were built or broken. It was exactly the kind of challenge she had been waiting for, yet the weight of it pressed down on her. The coach continued, "I'm offering you the chance to enter. But understand this, tournaments are unforgiving. You'll face opponents who don't care about stories or legacies. They fight to win, no matter what." Maya nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "I'm ready." A few students overheard the conversation, their whispers swirling around the dojo like a fresh wind. Some were skeptical, others surprised, and a few even smiled in quiet support. For Maya, it was more than just a competition, it was a proving ground. In the days that followed, training intensified. The coach pushed her harder, focusing on stamina, speed, and strategy. Maya's mentor remained by her side, offering guidance and encouragement, helping her sharpen both body and mind. She'd balance school and training, often staying late in the dojo, perfecting moves and visualizing every possible scenario she might face. Her confidence grew, tempered by the knowledge that the tournament would demand everything she had. As the day of the tournament approached, Maya felt a mix of nerves and excitement. This wasn't just about fighting. It was about stepping into the spotlight and showing that her grandfather's legacy lived on through her. When the invitation officially came, stamped and signed by the tournament organizers, Maya held it tightly. It was more than a piece of paper. It was a symbol of her progress and a challenge she was determined to meet head-on. The news of Maya's upcoming tournament spread quickly through the dojo, stirring a mixture of reactions among the students. Some greeted the announcement with raised eyebrows and quiet skepticism, unsure if the new girl could handle the pressure of a real competition. Others, however, saw it as a bold step, proof that Maya was serious about earning her place. During training, whispers followed her footsteps. "Do you really think she stands a chance?" one student muttered to a friend. "She's got heart, but this isn't just about heart," another replied, shaking his head. The doubts hung in the air, subtle but persistent, like a shadow Maya couldn't ignore. Yet beneath the doubts, a quieter current of support began to emerge. A few of the older students, those who had watched Maya train late into the night, started offering small words of encouragement. "You've come a long way," said one during a break, clapping her gently on the shoulder. "If anyone can do it, it's you," another added with a nod. Even some of the more competitive fighters, known for their tough attitudes, showed signs of respect. They offered tips and advice, sharing strategies they'd learned from past tournaments. It wasn't loud or flashy, but the gesture meant a great deal to Maya. The coach, observing from the sidelines, remained stern but attentive. His occasional nods during practice carried a new weight, a silent acknowledgement of Maya's progress and potential. Despite the mixed feelings swirling around her, Maya held onto the quiet encouragement she received. She understood that doubt was part of the journey and that support, even if small or unexpected, was a powerful reminder she wasn't alone. Each training session became a balance between silencing the doubters and embracing the allies. With every punch thrown and every block perfected, Maya's confidence grew. Not because she had proven everyone right, but because she was proving herself capable of facing whatever came next. The morning light filtered softly through Maya's window, signaling the day she had been preparing for. The tournament was finally here. Her heart fluttered with a mix of nerves and excitement as she dressed in her crisp GI, the fabric feeling heavier with the weight of expectation. The quiet house buzzed with a calm tension, her family's supportive smiles grounding her even as adrenaline pulsed through her veins. At the tournament venue, the atmosphere was electric. The gymnasium was packed with fighters, coaches and spectators from all over the region, their voices rising in a constant hum of anticipation. Banners hung from the walls, and the polished mats gleamed under the bright lights, a stage set for triumph and challenge. Maya moved through the crowd with steady focus, her eyes scanning the faces around her. Some looked fierce and confident, others calm and collected, each competitor a story, a rival, and a test. Her coach and mentor stayed close, offering last-minute advice and quiet encouragement. The warm-up area was a whirl of motion, fighters stretching, shadowboxing, and mentally rehearsing their matches. Maya took deep breaths, centering herself, recalling the long hours of training and the legacy that fueled her spirit. Doubts surfaced, but were quickly pushed aside by determination. As her name was called, Maya stepped onto the mat, the noise of the crowd fading into a steady beat in her ears. She bowed to her opponent and the referee, the formal gesture marking the beginning of the challenge. The lights felt brighter, the air thicker, but Maya stood tall, grounded by everything she had learned. With a sharp whistle, the match began. The clash of movements, the rapid exchanges, and the focused intensity swept her into a rhythm she recognized, a dance of discipline and will. The day stretched ahead, full of promise and peril, but Maya was ready to face it head-on, every punch a testament to her journey. The first match was swift and unforgiving. Maya faced a seasoned opponent, a fighter known for quick reflexes and aggressive tactics. From the opening whistle, the pressure was relentless. Her opponent's strikes came fast and precise, forcing Maya to scramble for defense. Despite her preparation, the reality of the tournament was harsher than any practice session. Maya moved cautiously, trying to anticipate attacks and find openings. She managed a few solid blocks and counters, but each success was met with immediate retaliation. Her opponent exploited every hesitation, landing punches that stung and kicks that tested her balance. The crowd watched intently, the tension rising with every exchange. A sudden flurry of strikes caught Maya off guard. She stumbled backward, losing footing and falling to the mat. The referee began the count, but the humiliation felt deeper than the moment itself. The weight of defeat pressed heavily on her chest as she rose slowly, eyes burning with frustration and disbelief. The cheers and applause for her opponent filled the arena, a sharp contrast to the silence surrounding Maya. Some students from her dojo watched quietly, their expressions a mix of sympathy and surprise. Maya felt the sting of disappointment more acutely than the physical blows. This was the moment she feared, the harsh judgment of the ring, the undeniable proof of her current limits. As she left the mat, the coach's voice cut through the noise, firm but not cruel. This isn't the end. You learn more from losses than wins. What matters is what you do next. Maya nodded, swallowing the bitter taste of failure. She knew the journey was far from over, that this defeat was just one step on a much longer path. The respect she sought wasn't handed out. It was earned, often through struggle and setbacks. In that moment, amid the disappointment and the quiet whispers, Maya's resolve hardened. She wasn't defined by this loss. Instead, she would use it as fuel, pushing harder, training longer, and rising stronger. The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. After the bitter taste of defeat, Maya returned to the dojo with a heavy heart but an unbroken spirit. The loss had been a painful lesson, but it also ignited a fire within her, a determination to grow beyond the limits that had held her back. Every doubt, every whisper of disbelief now fueled her resolve instead of weakening it. She threw herself into training with renewed intensity. Mornings began before sunrise, muscles stretching and warming in the quiet stillness. Late nights stretched long as she honed her techniques, refining every punch, kick, and stance with a sharp focus born from experience. The ache in her body was a reminder that progress demanded sacrifice. Her mentor noticed the change immediately. "You're learning not just to fight," he said quietly one evening, "but to understand yourself. Strength comes from more than just muscle." The coach, 2. Observe Maya's transformation. His criticisms remained tough, but they were now paired with moments of rare encouragement. "You've got grit," he admitted during one session. "That's something no defeat can take away." Around the dojo, the atmosphere shifted. Some students who had doubted her before now offered nods of respect, while others approached with cautious support. Maya's quiet determination was becoming impossible to ignore. Beyond physical training, Maya worked on her mental game. She practiced visualization, imagining herself moving with confidence and precision in the ring. She learned to breathe through pressure, to stay calm when adrenaline surged. Each small victory built layers of resilience that went far beyond technique. With every drop of sweat and every aching muscle, Maya felt herself growing, not just as a fighter, but as a person. The journey ahead was still long, filled with challenges she couldn't yet see, but her resolve was firm. This loss had not broken her. It had forged her into someone stronger, ready to face whatever came next with unwavering courage and heart. One late afternoon, as the dojo buzzed with the steady rhythm of training, the atmosphere shifted suddenly. The sliding doors at the entrance opened with a soft whoosh, and every head turned. A tall figure stepped inside, a presence that commanded attention without a word. It was Chuck Norris, his steady gaze calm but piercing, his posture unmistakably confident. The room seemed to still, the usual clatter and chatter fading to a hushed reverence. Students paused mid-move, eyes wide with surprise and awe. Even the coach, known for his stern demeanor, straightened as he recognized the legend standing before them. Chuck Norris moved with purposeful grace, his footsteps measured but powerful as he approached the center of the dojo. He looked over the students, then fixed his gaze on Maya, who stood rooted in place, heart pounding with disbelief and newfound hope. "I've heard about the young fighter with determination," he said quietly, his voice carrying weight beyond the words. "I came to see if the stories were true." Maya swallowed, steadying herself. This was the moment she hadn't dared to imagine, the chance to learn from a master who embodied everything she aspired to become. Chuck's presence was more than inspiring. It was a challenge and an invitation. He moved toward Maya, offering a nod of respect. "Let's train." Over the following days, the dojo transformed. Chuck Norris's calm discipline and deep knowledge reshaped the air. His lessons weren't just about technique. They were about spirit, humility, and strength that comes from within. The students watched as Maya absorbed every lesson, her confidence blossoming under Chuck's watchful eye. The whispers of doubt faded, replaced by admiration and respect. With Chuck Norris walking through the dojo doors, everything changed. For Maya, it was the turning point, the moment when her quiet determination met the guidance of a true master, setting her on a path toward greatness she had only dreamed of before. The dojo was unusually quiet as Chuck Norris's training sessions with Maya continued. Each day, the legendary martial artist pushed her beyond what anyone thought possible, refining her technique with patient precision and unwavering discipline. The students watched in awe as Maya's confidence soared and her movements grew sharper, faster, and more assured. The coach, once the voice of relentless criticism, found himself increasingly silent. His usual barbs and sarcastic remarks faded into the background as he observed Maya's transformation. The cocky smirk he often wore was replaced by a furrowed brow, a sign of deep reflection and perhaps a grudging respect. One afternoon, as Maya executed a flawless combination under Chuck's watchful eye, the coach paused mid-command, eyes locked on her movements. He cleared his throat, a rare gesture that drew attention, and simply said, "Impressive." The single word hung in the air, heavier than any critique or praise he had ever given. Later, as Chuck and Maya practiced together, the coach stood off to the side, arms crossed but visibly unsettled. The quiet confidence Maya now carried was unmistakable, and it challenged everything he had believed about her potential. The silence from the coach was not just surprise. It was the dawning realization that Maya had surpassed expectations in ways he hadn't anticipated. In the days that followed, the coach's demeanor shifted subtly. He began to offer more constructive feedback, his tone less sharp but no less demanding. The room felt different, a mix of old authority softened by respect and new possibilities. Maya noticed the change, but didn't let it distract her. She focused on the lessons from Chuck Norris, the quiet nods from the coach, and the growing support from her peers. The shock and silence from the man who had doubted her became a quiet testament to her progress, a reminder that even the harshest critics can be won over by true dedication and skill. One evening, as the dojo settled into a calm rhythm, Chuck Norris gathered Maya for a private lesson. The other students had finished training and left, leaving the room quiet except for the soft sound of their footsteps on the mats. Chuck's presence was steady and reassuring, and Maya felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. Karate isn't just about strength or speed, Chuck began, his voice calm but filled with authority. It's about discipline, respect, and knowing yourself better than anyone else does. He demonstrated a slow, deliberate kata, each movement precise and purposeful. Every move you make should come from intention, not impulse. Maya watched closely, absorbing the lesson not just with her eyes, but with her mind and heart. Chuck continued, "You've been working hard on your technique, and that's important. But the real fight is inside. The battle to control your fears, your doubts, and your emotions." He paused, meeting her gaze. "Your grandfather knew this. That's why he was a champion. It's not just what you do on the mat. It's who you are when no one is watching." Maya nodded slowly, feeling the weight of his words settle deep within her. Chuck guided her through breathing exercises, teaching her how to center herself when pressure threatened to overwhelm. "Calm your mind, steady your breath, and your body will follow." Then came the most unexpected part of the lesson. Chuck invited Maya to spar with him, not as a test, but as a learning experience. The movements were fluid and controlled, every strike a teaching moment rather than an attack. He showed her how to read an opponent's intent, how to use their energy against them, and how to stay balanced even when under pressure. By the end of the session, Maya felt transformed, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. The legend himself had passed on a truth that went beyond punches and kicks. True strength comes from within, and it was this strength that would carry her through every fight to come. Days turned into weeks as Maya trained relentlessly under Chuck Norris's watchful eye. Each session was a blend of rigorous physical drills and profound mental conditioning. Chuck's teaching style was demanding but patient. He pushed Maya beyond her limits while ensuring she understood the purpose behind every movement. Maya's days began early with stretches and basic forms, gradually progressing to advanced techniques that tested her balance, speed, and precision. Chuck emphasized fundamentals like stance and breathing, drilling them until they became second nature. He reminded her often that true mastery lay in consistency and attention to detail. Beyond physical training, Chuck introduced exercises to sharpen Maya's awareness, teaching her to read opponents' body language, anticipate moves, and maintain calm under pressure. "Fighting isn't just about reacting," he explained one afternoon. "It's about controlling the fight before it even begins." The dojo atmosphere shifted noticeably. Other students watched Maya's transformation with a mixture of respect and curiosity. Her movements were more confident, her presence commanding even during the toughest drills. The coach's critiques became more constructive, reflecting a newfound belief in her potential. During sparring sessions, Chuck remained close, offering subtle corrections and encouragement. He demonstrated counters and combinations with effortless grace, challenging Maya to match his pace. When mistakes happened, he used them as teaching moments, never harsh but always clear. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Maya sat catching her breath. Chuck approached, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You've come far," he said quietly. "But remember, the journey doesn't end here. Keep your heart steady, your mind sharp, and your spirit unbreakable." Maya felt a deep sense of gratitude and determination. Training with Chuck Norris wasn't just about learning to fight. It was about becoming the kind of person who could stand strong in any challenge. Under his guidance, she was no longer just a student. She was a fighter ready to face whatever came next. The day of Maya's return to competition arrived with a charged atmosphere that crackled through the dojo. This time, the whispers were different, tinged with anticipation and respect rather than doubt. Students and coaches alike watched as she stepped onto the mat, her posture strong, her eyes steady. The months of grueling training under Chuck Norris had transformed her from the uncertain newcomer into a confident and skilled fighter. As the match began, Maya moved with fluid precision. Her strikes were sharp, her footwork balanced and swift. She anticipated her opponent's moves with ease, countering attacks with a calm control that surprised even the most seasoned observers. Every punch and kick carried the weight of discipline and experience, each movement a testament to the countless hours spent perfecting her craft. The crowd's energy pulsed with every exchange, the tension building as Maya displayed not only strength but strategy. She stayed focused, unshaken by pressure, her breathing steady. When she landed a decisive blow, the roar of approval filled the arena, an eruption of respect for the fighter who had returned stronger than ever. Her coach, usually stoic, allowed a rare smile as he watched Maya dominate the match. Chuck Norris stood nearby, nodding in quiet pride. The students around the dojo cheered, some joining the chorus, their previous doubts replaced by admiration. When the final whistle blew, signaling her victory, Maya bowed gracefully to her opponent and the referee. She felt a surge of emotion, not just for the win, but for the journey it represented. Every setback, every late-night practice, every lesson from Chuck Norris had led to this triumphant moment. As she stepped off the mat, hands raised in quiet celebration, Maya knew this was more than a victory. It was a declaration. She had earned her place, not through words or legacy alone, but through relentless effort and unyielding heart. The mat was hers again, and she was ready for whatever challenge came next. The dojo was alive with energy and celebration as Maya stood quietly in the center, absorbing the moment. Her victory was more than a personal triumph. It was a statement to everyone who had doubted her, a living testament to the legacy she carried and the strength she had forged on her own. The cheers from fellow students, the nods from coaches, and even the proud gaze from Chuck Norris created a tapestry of respect that wrapped around her like a mantle. Maya reflected on the journey, the sneers, the whispers, the relentless training, and the quiet nights spent perfecting every move. Each challenge had been a stepping stone, shaping her into a fighter worthy of the name she bore. The memory of her grandfather, Hiroshi Takeda, was no longer just a story to defend, but a living legacy she had honored through her dedication and spirit. The coach approached, his usual stern expression softened by genuine respect. "You've earned this," he said simply, "not because of who your grandfather was, but because of who you've become." The words, though few, meant more than any applause. Chuck Norris, standing nearby, gave a nod of approval. "True strength is earned," he said quietly. "You've shown that strength isn't inherited. It's built day by day, with heart and discipline." As the dojo gathered around to congratulate her, Maya felt a profound sense of belonging. She wasn't just a student or a fighter. She was part of a community that valued perseverance and honor above all. The legacy she carried was no longer a burden, but a beacon guiding her forward. In that moment, Maya understood the true meaning of respect. It was not demanded, but earned through action and character. Her journey had come full circle, from the quiet girl with a proud claim to a champion who had proven herself. The path ahead was still long, but with her legacy honored and respect secured, Maya was ready to face whatever challenges the future held with unwavering courage and grace.